You hear that? That's a good sear. Life's too short to eat bad steak. If you want restaurant quality steak at home, here at MadeIN, we've put together a guide for how to get the best sear on your steak. Searing is cooking over high heat with a little bit of fat to get a beautiful golden brown exterior. What we want today is a perfect wall-to-wall, deep brown crust that's a little bit crispy. And how are we gonna get there? Let's start with the seasoning. Let's talk about seasoning. Not only how much, but when you season it is really important when you want to get a good crust on your steak. You want to make sure you season it generously, and I like to use kosher salt because it has a coarse texture that I can see on the surface to see how much seasoning I'm getting on there, and also it will start to dissolve pretty easily. You need to be strategic about when you season your steak. When you salt a protein, it starts to draw moisture out of that protein. That moisture is the enemy of a good sear. The longer you let it sit and reabsorb that moisture, the more evenly seasoned the steak will be throughout. And you don't want to put a wet steak into your pan because that will cause it to steam instead of sear. My favorite pan for searing is a carbon steel frying pan. A lot of people like cast iron for searing steak, but I actually like carbon steel better because it's more heat responsive, which just means if my heat's too high and something's starting to burn, or if it's not quite hot enough, I can make adjustments in the temperature and the pan will respond a lot more quickly than a cast iron. I also love this pan because it has naturally non-stick properties that just get better with time, and I never have to worry about anything sticking. You want to make sure your pan is properly preheated. I know sometimes I'm in a rush, I don't want to wait for the pan to preheat, but it's really crucial to get a great sear. You don't want to put your steak into a pan that's not hot enough. I'm going to preheat this over medium-high. This is a pretty strong stovetop, but at home you might want to crank it all the way up to high. When it gets hot, it's going to start giving off wisps of smoke, and that is okay. You really want to give it a chance to get pretty hot so you can get a great sear on the first side you put down. Now that it's hot, it's time to add my oil. I'm using a neutral oil. This is avocado oil, it has a high smoke point, and I'm going to use a fair amount, about a tablespoon. I'm looking for the oil to be shimmering. There's a little bit of smoke coming off the pan. This is telling me that the pan is ready, and I'm going to go ahead and put the steak in. You want to immediately press the steak into the surface of the pan. If you have a grill press, use that and really push that surface into the pan. I want to get really good contact on this first side with the pan so it can have a really even brown crust. I think I'm ready to do my first flip. Because this carbon steel pan is kind of naturally non-stick, it releases really easily. Another key to getting a great sear on the steak is to flip your steak and flip it often. There's old advice that you should only flip your steak once. I don't agree with that. I think you should flip it every 1 to 2 minutes. That really helps you to get an even sear on both sides and to cook it evenly throughout. When you're flipping your steak, don't forget to cook the edges as well. It can make it look more attractive, and also if you have a large fat cap or piece of fat on the side, you want to render some of that fat. How do we tell when it's done? My favorite way is to use a digital thermometer because I feel like it's really foolproof. I'm looking for about 120 to pull the steak so that it can rest and come up to medium rare. People also use a cake tester. Stick that into the meat and you touch it to a sensitive body part like your wrist and see if it feels warm. Or you can use the tried and true hand method where you can feel different points on your hand to see if it's rare, medium rare, or well done. I think it's done. Look at that sear, we did it, guys. Last step, we have to let it rest for about 10 minutes. The meat is really tense. We're gonna let it chill and let those juices redistribute throughout the meat. And I'm gonna rest it on a cooling rack set over a sheet tray. That's gonna allow the air to circulate. I don't wanna put that down onto a butcher block right away because the underside will get wet and it'll ruin that sear that we've worked so hard to build. Really evenly browned from edge to edge. This is a New York strip. It's got the grain kind of running this way, which means I'm gonna start slicing at an angle on this side. What I'm looking for is a nice contrast between that golden brown, almost crispy crust and a nice rosy pink interior. There you have it, we got the perfect sear. And how did we get here? We remembered these 4 key steps. We seasoned the steak for the right amount of time. We chose the right pan, preheated that pan, and we flipped the steak often to really develop a golden brown crust all the way around the steak. If you follow these steps, you can make a great steak at home too. I'm Rhoda from MadeIN, and I'll see you next time.